These videos are a few things that we shot over the last several months. Jerry and I sat down and talked about the steps together, and we both come from different backgrounds, Al-Anon and AA. We both have different hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and we both have different takes on the 12 steps. But one of the things we want to do is bring hope to other families, that you can recover, you can get well, and that those little people who are affected by all that you do and say can get better too. And this is our mission, is to share with other people that we can do it, that the whole family can recover and the whole family can be well. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure and subscribe above.
Hi, are we on?
Yep.
Welcome to the Joyous Family podcast, video cast. We're doing step 6 today. Yes. Are you pumped, Tanya, for some step 6 or what?
Absolutely. I just finished step 5 this week. I actually spoke with my sponsor, finished step 5. So now we are on to step 6 and I am ready to go.
Sweet. So who knows what step 6 is? Go ahead and put it there in the comment section.
Nobody's on yet.
Nobody's on yet. We'll just wait. We'll just sit here and wait for you guys to come on. So step 6 is became entirely ready. No. Yeah. Became entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
Oh, did I put the wrong thing on the title then? I did. Ooh. Okay. Oh,
What'd you put on the title?
Humble. But
Humbly asked him to remove all these
Is
defects?
that step 7? What's step 6?
Yeah, that's step 7 where you ask him.
Where?
Somebody comment and say, Jerry's right. Became entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
You are right.
I'm used to it. When it comes to the steps,
Okay, let me write that down.
I'm right.
Okay. So explain what that means.
We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So, what that means is that there's more to, well, in a program, well, let me back up again. In my humble opinion, in a program which is searching fearlessly into the depths of our psyche, we're going to find some things that we're not just completely ready to have God remove. In some cases, in my case, it may be sugar addiction, lust, movies, there's some lesser ones now, but back in the day, it could have been. Oh well, let me go. Let's go to some of the ones that I'm working on now. Selfishness, especially when it comes to money. Free time, wanting my own free time. So anyway, I feel like I've deserved these things, that I've earned them, that they keep me warm at night. So like lust, I don't think that I earned lust, but then again, nor do I necessarily want to am I just completely ready to have God remove that? Now, I think probably a lot of people who are listening, and I'm sure there's tons of you out there right now, are thinking to yourself, oh, well, that's just...
We've got 1! No, we've got 5 viewers, so you are talking to people.
Nice.
Thanks, guys. Now we have 3. We'd be happy if you commented. We love
5.
comments.
We had 5 for a second.
We had 5 for a second. Here
6.
we go.
So anyway, I think probably some people are like, oh, well, I am so ready to have God remove all my defects of character. But that hasn't been necessarily my experience. It was early on, but as I dug a little deeper, when I want to be angry, I want to be angry. And I don't want to just have God remove that. I want to be angry, darn it, because I'm in the right, and
and it feels good. I'm really good at angry.
Yeah. So, became entirely ready. We're Well, how's it exactly written? I always say became entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
It says were.
And we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So obviously these guys, when they developed this program, realized or thought about it in the same way that I do, which is it's not just that easy to go, okay, God, I see a defect. Go ahead and remove it, please. That's actually the next step. The first step is prayed. Well, I became entirely ready. Now, I imagine that's different. What my sponsor would encourage me to do would be to pray for willingness, to pray for, the leading of the Spirit to direct me to the collateral damage that these addictions bring about in the people that I care about in my lives and their lives. So, if I can go backward a little bit, I can remember the first time I went through these steps, and I was coming out of the wreckage of drugs and alcohol, and just seeing all the wreckage that it had done to my life and to those that I cared about, their lives. And I went through the steps. I went powerless. Okay, yep, totally powerless. My life is unmanageable. Two, came to realize that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Yep, I believe God can cure me of this, okay? 3, turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. Yep, I can do that, because if I have to do it, I'm going to mess it up. So I'll do that on a day-by-day, minute-by-minute basis. Number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. That was a little bit more difficult, but hey, I was willing to go to any lengths to find serenity, so okay, I made my list. 5, confess the list. Again, pretty difficult, but I was able to do it. And then 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Duh! Of course I'm ready to have God remove drugs and alcohol from my life. And that's about the extent that I could see were character defects for me. And it was just like, duh! Of course, this is the dumbest step ever. And then 7, which I'll just jump ahead because they're so intimately intertwined, actually asked Him to remove them. Okay, cool. Yep, God, please remove drugs and alcohol. Now I'm perfect, because now I got drugs and alcohol obsession removed from my life.
Right, but the ones like anger, depression, selfishness, how I spend my money, those are feeding us in some way. We're getting some results from those, and not to say that you weren't getting results from drugs and alcohol, but the gift of desperation had come in, and for me, the codependence and not being able to manage my own life had created such an issue that I had to give that up. But in some of the other ones, we're still getting something out of it. Something is coming forward that's giving us some pleasure or something that we want to keep doing it.
Yeah. And even if, I know in my experience, even if I recognize some of these lesser sins as a defect, doesn't necessarily mean I'm ready to give them up. Or that maybe I'm ready to give them up. Maybe not. Kind of go both ways. I mean, I really, really like eating a half-gallon of ice cream on a Saturday afternoon, and then having the sugar crash and taking a nap, and then just pushing everything off to the Sunday and eating the other half of the gallon, and then back to work Monday morning. Anyway, I digress, but I would definitely view that as a character defect that I'm not necessarily like, yeah, God, take it away, I'm ready. Or one of the big and glaring ones in my life recently is this idea of becoming dependent solely on God as my provider. I can see as a true Christian, if I'm going to be very diligent about my faith, that ultimately I shouldn't put my trust in anything other than God, my higher power, and Jesus. Yet, if God said to me, hey, cash in your savings and go give it to the church, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, I would view that, okay, I got a message from the Spirit. He said, do away with your savings account. I would view that as, if I balked, a character defect.
But it's the parable of the rich young ruler. That's exactly what he said to him. I was tithing regularly, And at one point, I was clear that I was not supposed to tithe anymore because it had become a pride issue for me. I could give to the church. That made me better than other people. That made me able to lord it over other people's heads. And it became clear to me that I wasn't supposed to do that anymore because it wasn't an act of giving God the first fruits. It was saying, I could do it. I could make that happen. I think step 6 gets confusing because we look at it and say, of course I want that. Why wouldn't that happen? But I think the 12 by 12, this is what we're reading from today. This is our only prop today, unfortunately, says step 6, necessary to spiritual growth, the beginning of a lifetime job. So this doesn't end just when you do it. Recognition of difference between striving for an objective and perfection. Why we must keep trying. Being ready is all important. Necessity of taking action. Delay is dangerous. A lot of us would put this off. We don't want to deal with this. We don't want to do this. And with some character defects, as simple as, I mean, how bad do I want to be in shape? How bad do I want to feel strong? How bad do I want to do that? How bad do I want to not feel bad in the morning because I've gone to bed too late? So that's delay. Rebellion may be fatal. It depends on what your character defect is and the point at which we abandon limited objectives and move towards God's will for us. Now, we kind of look at this like we can see over the horizon for our kids, and they can't. We can see that if they develop bad homework habits, if they develop bad work habits, if they are not respectful to people, that there's going to be things further on down the line. And that is why we are helping them to look at what's available to them and what the consequences might be. And in my belief with God, it's He doesn't ask me to do things that are going to take away pleasure from me. It's taking away harm that's either going to come later or that it's going to be immediate. If I stay up till 1 in the morning on the computer trying to fix something on WordPress, which I'm really angry with at this moment, then I pay a big price for it the next morning. So having a clear bedtime is something that really helps in my whole family situation, so I'm not so frustrated and tired and angry and all those types of things.
Step 6, we are entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. That's what we're talking about. I see we got viewers coming on and coming off, so yeah, step 6.
And defects of character can be all kinds of things. We were just looking at something the other day about bedtimes. That's more and more serious. People are having lots of trouble, lots of anger issues, depression issues because they're not getting enough sleep. We have this culture that says, hey, you can live on 4 or 5 hours, or the TV is more important, or even in a driving situation that can be important. So character defects don't necessarily just have to do with drugs and alcohol. They could do with a lot of other things.
Yeah, like staying up addiction, like sugar addiction, like lust, like selfishness, especially when it comes to money, in my experience, like covetousness when it comes to looking at other people's things.
Or looking at other people's lifestyle. I mean, we often look at other people's lifestyle and say they must have everything they need. It's just like anybody's marriage. Until you have lived in their marriage, you don't know what that really looks like. And so those character defects are things that each person has to decide for themselves on what's important. What is it that is causing problems in their lives? What is it that is causing their life to be unmanageable? When I overeat, when I don't sleep enough, I get really tired and cranky, and everybody in my household feels it. And so that's not a worthwhile place for me to be. When I overwork, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I know. I would never notice that, but that's pretty.
Yeah, you would never notice that. They were supposed to have had dinner before we did this, and they didn't. Because I've been at work all day.
That's what happens when mom doesn't man the household. things go.
We could show you.
pop.
I don't know if you ever remember that commercial in the 80s when mom is sick and she comes out and the whole household is just destroyed. That's not unlike what it looks like today because I worked and they didn't. But character.
We worked. We went fishing. We had baseball practice.
That got canceled.
Do you know how long it took to get the Wi-Fi back online so we could watch movies? I mean, that was work.
So they've had a good Memorial Day. But these defects of character, we're ready to have these defects of character removed, is something that not everybody is ready for. We often put it out there and say, God, take it, and then we take it right back. It just is something that we're not real comfortable with. Now, the interesting thing is you've done the heavy lifting, really, by the time you've gotten through step 5, by the time you've met with your sponsor, done an inventory, shared it with God, yourself, and another person. You've done a lot of the heavy lifting, and a lot of people just drop off there. But the question is, are you really ready to have these things that are driving you to do unmanageable behavior lifted?
Let me see the book, because, the first time I went through this, I heard somebody say, well, congratulations, you've completed step 5, now you're on step 8. And as I reviewed what steps 6 and 7 said, it actually kind of made sense to me. Duh, of course I'm ready to have him remove this. What a silly step. What a silly 2 steps. Became ready and then asked him. It's just so obvious to me. I'm ready. Go ahead and let the miracles begin. But now as I look at, as the obsession to drink and to use drugs has been lifted from me miraculously for a long time now, not to say that it can't come back, but that for the most part it's gone. And I focus on other character defects that are less glaringly obvious. This step makes a whole lot more sense to me. So this is what it says in the 12 by 12. This is the step that separates the men from the boys. So declares a well-loved clergyman who happens to be one of AA's greatest friends. He goes on to explain that any person capable of enough willingness and honesty to try repeatedly at step 6 on all his faults without any reservations whatsoever has indeed come a long way spiritually and is therefore entitled to be called a man who is sincerely trying to grow in the image and likeness of his own Creator. Bam! Snap!
So this one seems kind of soft, but it's elusive for the reason that in a lot of senses we don't want to participate. In step 3 we've said that we've turned our will and our lives over to God, but have we really? Have we said, okay, not only am I going to let you direct me in the good things, but I'm going to let you direct me in the things that I kind of hold precious to me, like my bag of chocolate chips in the cabinet. I mean, it sounds... What? Yes.
That's pretty selfish.
Well, you, Mr. Quart of Ice Cream, when it comes home, we really both have sugar issues, really big ones. And sugar is probably one of the most unregulated drugs that's out there. I'm not saying it's all bad, but when it is controlling your life...
No, all regulation is bad.
As emotional eating. If I'm mad at him, I want to hit the chocolate chips. If I'm mad at my WordPress, I want to hit the chocolate chips. Why am I doing that? Because the sugar makes me feel better. The serotonin reuptake makes me feel better. And so that is just such a struggle for me. And yes, he is a man after God's own heart, Michelle. I really appreciate that. He does try really hard to follow God's plan for him. And again, we're talking about onion layers. This is not the first time that I've done my 4th step or the 5th step. It was easier this time, but there were a lot of things that I was still really angry and resentful about. And one of the things that we know that we said last time is trust God, clean house, and tell the truth. And if I don't tell the truth to myself, there's no way I can let God lift these defects of character. I mean, how many of you do exactly what Paul talks about, where he says, I do exactly what I do not want to do. I know what's right, but I do the opposite of what's right. And that's what steps 6 and 7 are about, is we're unable to transform ourselves according to the gospel. It is God that transforms us. But
good. Can I segue
Jesus,
into this?
wait. I got one more thing. Jesus is a gentleman. He's not, God is never going to force you into something that you do not want to do.
Don't change gears. And this is page 65 of the 12 by 12. If we ask, God will certainly forgive our derelictions, but in no case does he render us white as snow and keep us that way without our cooperation.
I think that's really key, especially for people who grew up with an angry understanding of God. And we aren't talking about a Judeo-Christian God, God of both the Old Testament and the New Testament, Torah and the Gospel. And a lot of people got an image that God was trying to force them into something. And what we have in Scripture, and it's written in Scripture, is the statement that God didn't come to force anything on us. He came as a gift that we could freely choose to accept. It is not, you must accept this.
Coercion.
There's no coercion. God does not do anything by condemnation, nor does he do it by coercion. And there's a passage in Romans that says we were all locked up in disobedience so he could show grace to us all, which means nobody has an edge over anybody else. When I learned that, I thought, wow, we're all equals. We are all given this opportunity, and we're all given the opportunity to choose life, to choose relationship now. This is not just some pie-in-the-sky salvation plan. We're choosing life now. And Michelle says he places blessings and gifts just beyond our reach. We have to be willing to do a little work. That's true, but we're saved by grace. We are not saved because of ourselves. We're not saved because of anything we've done. We are saved by grace. What God is saying to us is often what we hit this point with our oldest son when we were doing some things that he didn't like. He was about 5 or 6. And I said to Jerry, I said, he doesn't understand yet that what we're doing is keeping him safe. We are choosing to say no, and I don't remember what it was, whether it was going over to spend the night with a family or doing something that we thought was dangerous. We were choosing to say no to keep him safe. And that's often why things don't come into our lives, or we don't see the things that have not happened because God has protected us. We just don't see him. And that is often where we need to count our blessings and say, thank you that, thank you that we had food to eat, and thank you that we were safe today, and thank you that my children got home safe. Is just like a good parent, we can see beyond what our 5-year-old can see and say, hey, this is not the best option for you, and as your parent, I'm going to try and keep you safe.
I haven't read this chapter in a while, and they go through a number of the little sins that we could be doing that could be considered character defects, some less little by earthly standards.
And again, we're talking about step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove these characters' defects. And it's these smaller ones. So sin is a sin, according to Scripture. These smaller ones that we think, oh, I'll just hang on to this. I can transform myself, or I can stop anytime
This is one of my favorite paragraphs in the whole.
We're struggling with connection. We've got bad weather up here in the Colorado Rockies, and so we're struggling a little bit. Hang with us.
One of my favorite little paragraphs that is in this 12 by 12 book. He's talking about character defects. This one's self-righteous anger. Self-righteous anger also can be very enjoyable. In a perverse way, we can actually take satisfaction from the fact that many people annoy us, for it brings a comfortable feeling of superiority. Gossip barbed with our anger, a polite form of murder by character assassination. It has satisfaction for us too. Here we are not trying to help those we criticize. We are trying to proclaim our own righteousness.
And so that feeds what we've been talking about the last couple things, which we don't agree on, is sarcasm in the Greek means to cut. So that self-righteous anger is a lot of what sarcasm is about. When you say, like, yeah, that would have been really smart for you not to park underneath that tree so you got sap all over your car. Those are all sarcastic things that are designed to barb the other person.
You were so bad at it. No, it would have been like, wow, does this tree sap have shining properties that I didn't realize? Is that why you parked under the tree?
Jerry's from Connecticut, you know, where Bob Newhart comes from. He's extremely dry, but he is super good at sarcasm. Super, super talented at it.
It's a metric for potential.
It is not a metric for potential. It is to cut. And if you do it with your kids, it's just kind of like that playful name calling that couples do. And you never know when you've crossed the line and then somebody gets upset. Kids under the age of 12, one, don't understand abstract thinking, but two, also that sarcasm, they don't know when to trust you and when not to trust you. And if you've had alcohol or chemical dependency problems in the family, oftentimes those children have trouble reading facial expressions. They have trouble. Jerry and I were discussing something at one point, and as you can see, we're pretty animated and sometimes pretty loud, and our youngest looked at us and said, "Are you fighting?" And we weren't fighting. We were actually helping each other, but he doesn't have a clear understanding of that. So when you're working with kids, that sarcasm, that self-righteous anger, all those types of things, they don't get it. They just don't understand it. So it is something to be really careful with. In fact, it's something that should be eliminated. It's a character defect.
Okay, so now we're going to take about 5 minutes. We're going to call out each other's character defects. Ready? This is where it gets fun.
We have
right
lists.
Yeah.
We have lists of character defects, but
That's why step 4 is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves.
yes,
You got to be clear about
I'm
what.
I'm actually taking his inventory because it just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I do sarcasm myself, and I've really had to pull back because lots of people think sarcasm is witty, and if you can do that, come back. I mean, even the whole Friends episode where George Costanza often cannot come up with the witty saying at the time, and he wants to go back and talk to the person and say the witty saying at the right time. That's sarcasm, and it is meant to do damage, and God says multiple times, if he doesn't talk about it more than money, it is only second, is controlling the tongue. How detrimental and dangerous the tongue is to other people, that it can take out somebody far beyond what physical damage can do. How many of people are still super wounded by what got said to them as children?
You know what Warren Buffett
or
says?
Not said.
If you're not going to kick a guy when he's down, when are you going to kick him?
What did Jesus say? You turn the other cheek. You don't kick him at all. And if you've got your cloak, then you give. If you've got 2 cloaks, you give him 1. Our pastor did a great sermon on who is your Lazarus. He was talking about the rich man in the purple robes and Lazarus who was sitting at the gate having his sores lit.
Yeah, 2 Thessalonians 4.
Ooh, well done. And so, who is this person that you're overlooking, that you're not responding to, that you're saying, I'm too good to hear God from you? And that's often where our character defects shine like nobody's business, especially with, Stacey, you could look up the verse for me while you're giving me that, especially with your children. Do we want to tell them about Elijah's calendar?
No.
Okay. Someday we'll tell you about Elijah's calendar.
No, we'll have social services in here.
But what we don't think about is our character defects. Is that really something we want to pass on? I mean, we can certainly as adults forgive our parents. We can forgive other people. But what are we modeling as far as character defects for our children? You could look up verses on the tongue and spit them out here.
And so as I'm doing my 4th step still, because I'm a whole lot more thorough sarcasm than my wife.
He needs a balloon, a bubble that goes sarcasm up in the top of his head every time he does that.
So as I'm doing my 4th step, I actually called my sponsor and I was like, this list is small. And he said, so were you hoping to get like a minimum amount of items on there? And I was like, no, but I'm used to having pages. And he goes, do you want to wait until you get 27 before we meet again? I was like, no, I just want to run that by you. He goes, well, hopefully if we're working our program and we're doing a 10th step regularly, which that'll come in a few weeks, obviously.
Which is what got you kicked out the last time.
You know what? Let's not worry about that. That'll come later, I guess. So anyway, if you're doing a regular 10 step, then hopefully the list should be getting smaller. You've cleaned out a lot of this wreckage of your past. You've dealt with it. You don't need to go over it again. So good. And anyway, he's like, you know, you're gonna know better than anybody. Nobody else can tell you, except for your wife, maybe, whether or not you're working on your issues. Sarcasm again.
Never ask your partner what your issues are unless you are really ready. We learned that in Celebrate Recovery, that we have a couple that he thought everything was good, but he wanted to go and help with Celebrate Recovery. And he asked his wife what he should work on, and she said...
She had like a 30-minute diatribe, apparently, and then the funny thing was, she said, you may be having to go to Celebrate Recovery for the next 4 years. And I'm thinking to myself, with that list you just gave off, it's going to be a whole lot longer than 4 years. But anyway.
Is that how you spell Lazarus?
I don't know. It's capital L, U. I think it's U-R-O-U-S.
So it's really has struck me on, for a couple years now, on who am I not willing to hear God from? Where am I not looking? And again, I'm with you. My 4th step, I've been keeping...
2 Thessalonians 4, not 1 Thessalonians.
Not 2 Thessalonians, yeah. Are you sure? Okay. And then a dear friend of mine has put up some verses about the tongue in the comments below. So that's been fantastic. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks. You have been a blessing with your Jesus is Calling. I'll put you up in the links too. So if you need to hear Jesus is Calling in the morning, and we all do, friend of mine, Michelle, is doing that, and she's doing a great job. I forgot what I was saying.
I think we're good. I think we really covered step 6 pretty well.
Well, step 4. So I did my step 4, which is, step 5, which is what? Can you put that down? Jerry has a little issue with his phone.
It's not a part of my character defects awareness yet.
No. So, and I thought my step 4 and 5 was a little short compared to what it had been, but I have been keeping my 10th step. So,
and she didn't ask me my opinion either.
And I'm thinking about it. So the other thing that we've been working on is a slogan, and we really like trust God, clean house, and tell the truth.
I don't know if it should be comma and tell the truth. I think maybe comma and tell the truth without the end.
Let us know what you think on that slogan. Trust God, clean house, tell the truth. Because that, I think we're going to use as the joyous family slogan. These character defects have been really tough on us this time around. And probably we do need to ask each other. Because it's not really just about us. You don't want to know. I tell it regularly.
I don't need to ask.
It's true. And, the little people that live with you, if you still have kids at home, is sometimes an issue too. We do have a little shout out, and what we want you to do is, if you're still watching, subscribe. Bill, I am glad you love this phase because you love 4 too. But step 6 is, we think, a sleeper step that a lot of people want to skip over it and go straight to 8. We've been especially learning in Celebrate Recovery that these character defects have a broader span than addiction to alcohol and drugs, and that, man, we want to hang on to those things as our private little protectors that says this is who we are.
That's the beauty of recovery, is regardless of how your defects manifest as far as symptoms, whether it be drugs, alcohol, lust, overeating, reading, disengagement, sarcasm we know is not a defect, but you know what I'm saying. Regardless of how they manifest, the causes are the same. And we have this common ground where we have resentments that have caused these coping mechanisms to come out. Now the coping mechanisms can be really unique, but ultimately where we all find common ground is in our hurts
Right. So we've developed these coping mechanisms at a time when they were useful, and now they've become character defects because they're not useful. What may have been useful to me as a child as a coping mechanism, that's why we talked about sarcasm for so long, as far as how much damage is that doing to your child by what is said or what is not said, or this abstract, passive aggressive, very unclear message on what's being said to the child. So again, sarcasm means to cut. And it is intent to do damage, not to help or correct, because we both believe that you should teach the child in the way they should go.
It could be a nice little garnish decoration.
And it is not witty. So anyway, we're back on this. But anyway, so we've listed some things about the tongue. We've also put up the story of rich man and Lazarus is something to look at. I'll edit that. It's actually 2 Thessalonians. He remembers that. Who is your Lazarus? Who is the person that you really need to be aware of in your life that could benefit from some ministry from you? And that could be everything from a glass of water to a meal to just saying hello to somebody. But those things are all important. And thanks, Stacy. She's posted some other things in there. Now, we do have, so subscribe above so you can find us the next time. But I do have some things. You need to look at the post below. One of the things that gets people stuck is they get stuck in their own story and their own character defects. So I've been working with Bill Ebert. Hi, Bill. You're still on there. And he's got a book called Dream Your Life Amazing that is on the post below here. And if I knew how to hook the link correctly, I would do it. It is still free this weekend. You can see I've done a review over on Amazon. I've read it. It's really moving me forward in some dreams that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. The boys and I have this fantastic adventure planned. I'm changing my business moving forward. Bill is doing an event on June 1st in Charlotte as well. So we don't want you to think that we are stuck in this constantly looking for character defects and all those types of things. We are actually, he's trying to get the dog to come up so he can see you.
Recovery animal.
The recovery animal.
Come here,
She's over here.
come.
But what we want you to see is once you begin to let go of these things, these poor coping mechanisms, then you can begin to dream. And so just below this post is a free link to Bill's book. A free link. That's all you need to do. And then there's free links over to the Dream Planner as well. So he also has BillEbert.com, and those are things that we want, because we're called the joyous family, not the oh my gosh, we need to correct all our character defects now family. So, I'm sorry, it's June 11th is the live event in Charlotte, but the book is available now. And if you hop over there, you can get it for absolutely free. And it has been something that's really been changing my life. It's not that I don't have to keep working the steps.
And we are available to speak live at your event for a very nominal fee. Just very, very mild fee. Just travel expenses and a few other
we would love Charlotte. Kidding, Bill, sorry. But anyway.
Not sarcasm, Bill. See, there's no... Yeah.
But anyway, what we are looking at is, yes, we need to work the steps. Yes, we need to keep doing this good work. But we also need to pick up our dreams, because God puts the desires in our hearts. And he's the one that says, go out and do what you're divinely called to do. And most of us go, huh?
She says dream, mean? And all I think is dreamsicle. You know, like
I know, because you're hungry, because you didn't put dinner on the table for the kids in the timely fashion. Put that in your 4th step.
Let's wrap this
up. Okay, we're wrapping it up, and tell them what the 6th step is.
We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
Yes, and these seem like soft, mushy steps, but they are some of the keys to actually getting
It's where the rubber meets the road right here. Just separates the men from the boys. Right. Women from the girls.
Absolutely. And so stay. I'm losing battery. Don't leave us. Next Monday, 7 p.m., we will be doing the 7th step, which again is humbly ask him to remove these defects of character. Humbleness, I think a lot of us have a problem with. Me especially. I want to play the righteous older brother. If you haven't seen that, look that up as the prodigal son and see how truly prodigal is our God.
Yeah. I'm glad that we're doing this podcast so that I can help people with their humility, because it's one of the things I'm really, really good at.
Okay, we've run over time. So, trust God, clean house, tell the truth. If you do those things, your 4th step is not going to be half as long as ours was, and it will be much shorter.
It could be a lot longer, actually. If you're going to trust God, clean house, and tell the truth, it could be like very thorough and get it all out in one shot. And then if you survive it, you might be really well afterwards.
And we did survive it, and we survived it.
We're back on.
Okay,
that's our
trust
outro.
God, clean house, tell the truth. Be back with us on Monday. Be sure and subscribe before you leave. Thank you for all your comments. We really enjoyed it. Thanks, Tammy. Love you too. Bye-bye.